Hello, Coach
Hi.
Walsh. How are you?
I'm great. Couldn't be better. Couldn't
I'll
be
bet.
better.
I'll bet. Well, I really appreciate you meeting me here on this glorious Sunday.
Yep.
It's a big day in Padre history, and I'm so grateful that you would take the time to talk with us and capture this moment for all of our fans and players and coaches and students alike. So,
Right.
I guess I'd love to start with Friday night's game against the St. Francis Lancers, where we became the CCS champions with a final score of 16-12. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome game. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that one.
Just open it up and let it roll.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I guess we should first just discuss. I mean, your quarterback. I mean, your defense. I mean, where do we begin?
Yeah, I don't
Galindo,
know.
I mean, ever. There was just so many.
Well, let's
amazing
start.
moments.
Let's start where we started this whole journey, and that's with the spirit of the team.
Let's do it.
Yes, because obviously there was a different team that played Friday night than the team that played against the same team 20 days ago.
Correct.
And there was a lot that went into that, and I think a lot of people that have watched this podcast or listened to it had felt the pain that we felt after that St. Francis game, and it was a humbling, gracious pain. It wasn't. There was no finger pointing. It wasn't a bad call from the refs. It was a, sometimes humans have to go through pain to come through on the other side, and that's. In a 20-day span, that's what this team did, which was remarkable, to be honest with you. And a lot of it we talked about, how we're not scoreboard people, and it just something felt off and wrong the entire year. Mm-hmm. And that loss against St. Francis helped catapult us into a different stratosphere, if you will. And I think it's important to understand that the human spirit isn't meant to be comfortable at all times.
True.
And we were very uncomfortable after that game, very uncomfortable during the game. We got embarrassed in front of 7,000 of our closest friends. Well, maybe a few of them were friends of the Lancers.
On senior day, there was so much emotion. Poly day, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't a good day. But look, 23 days later, look where we are now. So I think it's a great story to talk about. If you want to on this podcast about the spirit of the team and what we went through and all the great things. So I think we start there, and that's where Serra football rests. That's where Serra football exists. It's the petri dish of every experiment that we go through on a yearly basis that has its own story now, that is now resulting in a banner that will be hung in the gym, another sign on the fence that says 2021 CCS champions, which is fantastic.
That's amazing. I had a lot of people say, wow, losing that game on November 6th, it hurt. It really hurt. But winning the game on November 26th, was just such a sweet feeling. And I think that the team showed extreme resilience. And really these last 2 weeks, I think that we've seen, it's always been a very talented, wonderful team, but the spirit in the last 2 weeks has been absolutely different, than it had been all along.
Right.
And the division doesn't exist anymore. It's a unit. It's just unified, and it's
Isn't that
really
crazy?
Nice to see.
And it usually doesn't happen, in that short
end
of a time.
Season,
right.
Even
it's usually something that matriculates over time, and this was something that seemed to happen, and which actually not even seemed, it did happen. People were like, "Whoa, that's a different team." That the team that played against Bellarmine in the semifinals was a different team.
Absolutely.
The team that played against Valley Christian in round one was the same team. But it was a remarkable feat for this to happen in that 20-day period, where there was a lot of humbling conversations, there was a lot of misery, and I likened it. I was going through so much pain. And I feel like, I always the Batman is my favorite comic. That's my favorite concept of There's always the human spirit's always trying to be rooted down by the Joker. Mm-hmm. and a lot of us have what I call a Joker mentality at times, and sometimes the Joker feels right, and that Joker tries to pull everything down, but there's always a Batman inside of each and every one of us. And the movie with Heath Ledger and that Batman with the Joker is just, to me, one of the best movies of all time. And in that, the Batman gets thrust down in that pit. And he breaks his back, and he's down in that pit that no one's ever been able to jump out of ever. And I think that happened to our team. Like, we had to go through that back-breaking spiritual doubt and pain and misery down in that deep, dark pit for us to finally find ourselves.
That's great.
And I think that's what happened over that 20-day period.
That's great. And we've talked a lot about just all the elements, I guess, all the ingredients that are mixed together to make the Padre football team, the experience and everything, the brotherhood, the humility, the love, all those things. And I think that it's really good to see that, you kind of started that period with that chapel at Bellarmine. Remember the Monday before the Bellarmine game?
Yeah.
And just to see it ignite toward the end of the season is really, really exciting. So
very, very exciting. And, I think that chapel, that Monday before Bellarmine, really, the topic was us. The topic was us, and it was, Bellarmine's an obstacle in what we want to become and what we want to be. And we won 41-0 that day, and it was like it was kind of the birth of Padre football in 2021, which is a strange thing to say because, you look at our 2019 team, we were 9-0 at one point. It was already happening. It was like a dream that we didn't want to wake up from. I kept saying that, and then Dalen broke his collarbone. I'm like, oh, man, that's a nightmare. But that story was totally different because, we beat Pittsburgh at home. It was an amazing team. We won at Levi Stadium, and it was always that it factor, that Padre football was always there. And we just had some bumps in the road and ended up at the state championship game. But, this year was totally different. It was just like fake the whole time. I hated it. And
underwhelming.
It was underwhelming. My wife was bored at games. Everyone's like, it's a good job. Like, you guys are, no, it was fantastic. Like, but everyone felt pain. Like, but maybe not the kids, and maybe they did too. But the reality of the situation was we did not like who we were until St. Francis basically gave us the gift of handing it to us to remind us of what we don't want to be. And that message was what we carried into the Bellarmine Chapel, which was on Monday, when I'm like, I'm done with this. Like, I had a choice at that point. Like, we can mask this and fix it in 2022, or we can like stare this thing down and look each other in the eye as men and say, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with me? What is wrong with us? Because, I stood in front of that team that day on that Monday, and I said, look, we are going to beat St. Francis at some point. It's going to happen. Everyone in this room knows it's going to happen because we're the Padres. And we're going to beat them, and we're going to beat them our way, like the way we play football. It's going to happen. And I told the seniors, you can jump on board now, or we're going to do it the next year. If it doesn't happen that year, we're going to do it the next year. But we're going to become who we know we are. And it's your choice. And I think really that was a watershed moment. Not only the things I said, but every coach stood up and spoke. Coach Bell spoke. Everyone spoke at that. Coach Hisao, I encouraged our coaching staff to talk about their experiences, that guys who played here. Coach Ortiz stood up in front of the team and spoke about like Padre football before I even was in existence at Serra. Like, I didn't even know Serra, frankly, existed. I was at De La Salle, and Coach Ortiz talked about that experience. Coach Thomas talked about what it's like to be a part of history, beating St. Francis for the first time in 35 games in 34 years here at Serra in 2006. It's like that will never be taken away from Coach Thomas. And we're just mummies, like walking through this season is just awful. And, that it was a very painful, introspective moment as a community that I think it's something that I think I'll never forget that moment, as a team. To me, that was the moment where we finally were truthful. And we talk a lot about love, brotherhood, humility, personal accountability, and all that. No one's taking accountability for anything, starting with me. And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm taking accountability. This is our brand, our product, if you will, that we're putting on the field, and no one's happy about it. No one. We just won a CCS game against Valley Christian. Like, no one's happy about that. We had 5 turnovers. It's not who we want to be. And what are we going to do about it? And I think that's the story as we move forward here.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, whatever happened in that moment, it definitely had a completely different end result because you talked about the seniors. The seniors did rise. I mean, it was their senior day on Friday. I mean, just watching the amount of the defense always does an amazing job, but there were so many standout seniors. So hats off to them for overcoming what was, like you said, an underwhelming season of wins to then really have all the feels of what it feels like to be a team and what it feels like to really win and an earned privilege, right? Like an earned
totally
game, so.
So then that's as we're discussing Friday night, that's the culture of the team. Culture counts. And in high school football, I talked to Brian Callahan. He's the offensive coordinator at Cincinnati Bengals, and he was the offensive coordinator at the Serra freshman His first job was offensive coordinator
really?
of the Serra freshman team. So
cool.
let's I always humble him with that. And now he's coaching, Burrow and come on.
Big time,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. But he went from Serra to the Broncos. I'm like, why'd you leave Serra? What's the matter with you? He goes to the Broncos. That's when Tebow was there. They won a playoff game, and then Peyton Manning comes in. So now Brian Callahan's coaching Peyton Manning.
Jeez.
Brian Callahan was I coached him at De La Salle, so he's dear to me. But anyway, like he was talking about he actually went to the Super Bowl where they played the Seahawks. The first play was a safety. And it was the most miserable experience I've ever seen. I was literally at the top of the pyramid of football on the Broncos side. And it was the most embarrassing game. It was at MetLife Stadium in New York. I'll never forget it. It was the most humbling, embarrassing, in front of 100 million people. I don't know how many people watched the Super Bowl, but it was unbelievable. The excitement the night before and then the disappointment the day after. Fast forward to 2 years later, when they went back, they played at the 49ers when the Broncos played, and I think they beat the Carolina Panthers, I think. And my wife and I got to watch his baby, and
Nice.
it was really cool. And he's like, "Come to the game." I'm like, nah, I already did that. The Super Bowl is a great thing to go to once. But so it was great, and then they won. And I said, "Hey, tell me about that team." He said, it's everything that we ever did at De La Salle. Just loving one another, being a part of something, deeper than yourself. Mm-hmm. And just that love and enthusiasm doesn't change whether it's high school, college, or pro. And the team that gets the culture right is usually the best team. Now, I'm not saying that we have the best culture, because obviously we didn't. We've been fighting for that all year. Mm-hmm. But on Friday night, our culture really, really came to fruition. So we put that to bed, I can start talking about football.
Yeah, well,
because I know people like to hear about football too.
Definitely, but I do think that part of what you see in all the football games that your Padres play is it's all rooted in what you're just discussing, and again, so let's get specific then about Friday night's game. Can you just take us through the first half?
Yeah, so we had they had a great first drive that ate up a lot of clock. So the first half went in a blink of an eye.
It was so fast.
It was very fast, and it was the result of some long possessions. So their first very long possession, they were going on one of those St. Francis drives, thankfully ended in a sack on fourth down. Mm-hmm. And it ignited the crowd. And it was like, okay, this could be different this time. And I thought that was really, really cool. And then we got the ball back and went on our own long drive. Maybe we went first. I can't remember the sequence. I'm sorry. But at any point, we got the ball down to the 15, had a holding call. Got the ball back down to the 10, got another holding call. They made a great play. Next thing you know, we're lining up for a 49-yard field goal.
Right.
And
it was like 25 yards of penalties in that sequence.
Yeah,
right?
there was. It was like, all right, we're gonna go. We're gonna score. Well, no, you're not.
A little scary there.
Yeah,
for us.
I get it.
Of us.
I get it. I totally get it. And sometimes, I've always said, and I think I've said it on this, but to win it all, you have to get lucky in two major areas, and that's injuries and penalties. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if you got a lot of penalties, you can't win.
Right.
So, we lined up for a 49-yard field goal, and Leo Galindo hit a field goal that probably would have been good from 60. The ball was pummeled.
It was amazing.
It was like a rocket, coming off his leg, and just the ball went down the middle of that. And in those championship games, those 3 points feel so good. They just set it apart. There's always just a little, almost like a cushion. So it was 3-0, and then they went on a championship drive. Their quarterback made a great play on third down. We had him sacked, and that led to a touchdown. And then they missed their PAT. So it was 6-3 at halftime.
Right.
And I think really the first play of the game was, I think the coaching staff, Coach Monsef on defense, Coach Bell on offense, and Coach Tees on the special teams, those are our coordinators, did a masterful job of thinking outside the box and what can we do to stop St. Francis. Mm-hmm. And, on that first play of the game, for us, we quickly realized that if we're going to win this game, it's going to have to be done with the seniors. And who's some of our best seniors? Well, Patello G is one of our best seniors.
Hands down. He
is one of our most humble warriors. He's one of our most humble leaders. He is what Padre football represents. And he has been that all year. He's a very quiet individual in terms of leading, kind of rah-rah guy. And finally he stepped up and spoke. And then it was like, we got to get that guy on the field. Like, he's got to be on the field. If we play 120 plays, he needs to play 118 of them. And there was a few of those situations that we went through from a personnel perspective. Like, what do we got to do to put the best guys on the field to actually not get embarrassed and have them rush for 570,000 yards? It was just, and the first play of the game, Petey, came up on the center. It was it's what we call muck, Mike under center. And, the center went one way and he went the other way. And next thing you know, he's in the backfield. And it's like, okay, we went there and we picked a fight.
Right.
And it was like, who are we going to pick a fight with? We're going to pick a fight with number 4. And he goes out there and, stacks the fullback, the ball bounces, and now Andrew Stewart, the extra player, standing in the box, and number 4 gets a gain of 0 on the first play of the game.
Yeah.
So that was, to me, like, everything that happened in that first half comes down to a few plays that I can remember, and that was the signature play of the first half was obviously the 49-yard field goal. And Patella G's making a statement early.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and just switching over to defense more. Their number 4 is amazing. They have a lot of great standout players. Amazing team as well. But the defense held him like remarkably. Like, I don't even know what his total yards were. But
he had 21 carries for 72 yards. So in the previous game, he had 44 carries for 344 yards.
Yes, he averages many more yards.
Many more yards per carry, more yards per game, and he's a fantastic back behind a fantastic offensive line. Behind, they were 11-0 for a reason. I mean, there's a great football team, and I think the difference, though, culturally speaking, is we put everything together from a schematical perspective with the I think is some of the best coaches in the state of California, in the country, just wonderful men who felt as much pain as anyone else did, and was like, we got to be better. And what I saw differently was the speed of how we were playing was a different speed than we played 20 days ago.
I agree.
And that comes from a lot of different places: technique, skill, and emotion. And there were 6 or 7 hats around the ball every single play. It was like, you're blocking me, but you're just not going to block me forever. And we're getting off blocks. We're running the football. We showed that passion, energy, and enthusiasm. Sadly for my offensive staff, I'm a defensive guy because I know if the other team can't score, you're going to win. Right. We've talked about that. But so, Ryan Silver is started at guard all year, played every down at guard. And I'm like, no, he's got to play defense. And if he has breath, he can play offense. So, thankfully he had breath and he played both ways a lot of the night. But, we had other guys step up. Nico Signs went in there and played some guard. We had Tiger, step up and play guard, for the first time all year. He played the entire game, which was huge because when Silver's doing that, like, he can't play the entire game against St. Francis. So we had some heroics there with other guys stepping up and fulfilling roles of places that had, guys hadn't done before. So I thought that was a big turning point in our philosophy. Was I went up to Tiger, I said, Tiger, you have to start and you have to play every down. So get it in your mind right now that that's what's going to happen. Because we knew we could not play Ryan Silver, particularly with, Dub Ciolo out.
Right.
He's one of those main fixtures on our line that can stand up to those guys. And then, realistically, from a defensive knowledge perspective, we were sitting ducks in game 1. Line up in certain gaps. We're in the A gap. You're in the B gap. If they block you in the A gap, you fill the B gap. It was very sequential. It was very linear. 1 + 1 = 2. We threw that out the window, and we said, let's present the illusion that we're lined up in the A gap and end up in the B gap. And this guy that's traditionally in the A gap, put him in the B gap. And it was a lot of that. And I can't tell you how that is AP defense. And it's AP defense that was installed in a week, which takes masterful coaching from the defensive coaches. So Coach Eagle, Coach Isao, Coach Thomas, Coach McGee, and ultimately Coach Monsef, our fearless defensive coordinator. To actually do that, it sounds like, oh, that's smart. Line up in A and go to B. And you go to B, you go to A. And do that with 6 or 7 different calls because we knew how smart Coach Calcagno is. We know that once he figures it out, he's going to make the adjustment. But we knew we had to have 5 or 6 of those calls. So, and that's really the story of the entire game. Like, guys and people who love defense, man, that'll be a film to study forever.
I'll bet.
It was really, really cool. And And I know, like, just as a head coach, I don't make any calls in the game anymore. I'm useless. I'm just the most useless head coach ever because I make no calls. Coach Bell makes all the calls. Coach Monsef makes all the calls, and I stand there and yell at refs is my role, I guess. But I sit over there, and I know early, the way we fit things on defense, if it's going to be a Padre night. And I knew early, like, okay, here we go. Yeah. This is going to be fun.
That's great. Well, wonderful. And offensively, I mean, Dom was moving that ball. He was running like crazy. That was really great to see. He was completely 100% committed as always, but just to watch some of those fakes, I was having trouble finding where the ball was. I mean, he just really was creative with, just all of his movements, and it was very, very fun to watch there too.
Well, we saw Steeman Willie Beeman come back. We saw the Dom that we love, and his smile and his confidence, and sometimes that you can mistake bravado for like, you need to be humble. Like, at times you need to stand up and be like, I'm Dom Lampkin.
Yeah, and he showed it.
And we needed that, right? And it was just so good to see him smiling and running and talking and being him,
It was, so. It was just, the energy was contagious. I've never seen anything so exciting as at the end of the game. I mean, when everybody came on the field, it was a pretty amazing moment. And I think when you say, there's a time to say I'm Dom Lampkin, I think that everybody had that moment on the field. Like the Padres, they felt who they were and who they were as individually and together. And that was really, really cool to see.
Right. And I think, again, not being a scoreboard-based organization, the scoreboard does validate some certain things, right? So the scoreboard that night validated the painful journey that we were willing to go through. And a small microcosm of that within a bigger scope of thing is Leo Galindo. Leo Galindo, by all accounts, was embarrassed 23 days ago now, right? It was sad, actually. Mm-hmm. And, he didn't have a good game. And, I had a few of the players over to my house after the game, on that Monday after St. Francis, and he stood there with his chest out and his head high, and I'm like, man, that's a resilient kid right there. I was like, okay, we got some hope right now, because that's a guy who stands out on an island all by himself. He's the kicker. He's the punter. I mean, we put so much on him. He's our dime player. He plays corner.
I was gonna say he made a bunch of tackles that night. I mean, he was all over the place.
They went after him. Yeah. I mean, if I'm St. Francis, I'm like, okay, let's find 23 and go after him. Mm-hmm. I mean, why wouldn't you? Different person, different mentality, different belief structure. Whatever it was amazing. And I think that is the resiliency of the Padre right there.
Yeah.
And like the school rallied around Leo. It was like, we got you. And he even told me, like, man, the hardest part is walking through the halls and all these guys don't even play football. They're like disappointed. And it's like, that's cool.
It's a lonely position sometimes. But
I love that about Serra. It's like these kids care. They do. You should be disappointed. The student body showed up here and they're like, what is this? This isn't the team that we came to cheer for. And we all shoulder the burden on that. But in understanding that how Leo kind of had his own story of redemption and you're like, okay, throw the ball at me, let's go. Mm-hmm. That was really cool to see. And the tackles he made and the kicks he made, and he had a scoop and score on an arguable fumble, not fumble, whatever.
Yes.
So, that
was a rally. That was a real rally everybody was up, for
totally.
That. It was so good.
Totally. And, I had a chance to see some of the pictures on, or, some of the clips on Twitter that were, from the sideline on the St. Francis side, and all you can see is a sea of blue and back, and just like, oh, yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yes, a lot of alumni showed up, a lot of and everyone had that kind of head nodding look in their eye, like, we're Serra, we're still Serra. Like, it's, there's everyone that understands, like, let's call it the hero's journey, knows that sometimes a hero gets tossed in the pit, and there's doubt, and there's no one in blue doubted who we were. Particularly the people inside the walls. Like, we were the only ones that truly believed in what we could do and be. And, that was, to me, as the head coach of the program, that's what makes me most happy, is seeing, everyone else happy. One of my favorite scenes in Shawshank Redemption was, when the warden, Andy Dufresne said, I want to reward my guys for just one time. I want them to feel human just one time. They're putting the tar on the top of the roof, and he organized beers for his guys, and he didn't have one. he stepped back and just watched the guys enjoy it. And as the head coach at Serra, to me, just seeing that unfold is kind of, I always, in a weird way, just picture myself like Andy Dufresne on that rooftop, just like, wow, this is so cool. Just seeing so many people just so happy.
Right.
Particularly after knowing that we were in prison. We were in our own weird prison. And seeing that we could, crawl through a river of whatever and come out clean on the other side. That's Padre football. You got to go through the pain to get to the good stuff.
That's awesome. And good stuff just keeps coming our way, doesn't it? We are, why don't you say, so we waited for the seating meeting, which was this morning, that rhymes. And why don't you be the one to announce this great news?
Yeah. So we start at 11, or the commissioners all meet at 11 o'clock, and it's the 10 commissioners decide the bowl system.
It's a CIF, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of states, you got your bracket set up, and over 5 weeks you find a state championship. Here in the state of California, we have 3 to 4 weeks of playoffs in our 10 sections, and then however that criteria works out for your section. In our section, you have to win a CCS title to be considered to play in the state tournament. Thankfully, we did that. So then it goes to the sections, and Dave Grissom is our commissioner, and he said, "Hey, what do you want to do?" Like I said, you got to go for the open. Mm-hmm. I mean, why not? You got to go for the big dog. And it came down to us and De La Salle, and then at around 12:05 or so, which is pretty specific. So not around. It was 12:05.
It was 12:05.
I think so. Yeah, whatever. Maybe I made that up too. But Justin Ferdinand, our athletic director, called and said, "Get ready, man. You got a week off." And when the minute he said that, I'm like, "Whoa," because the two teams that the state deems are the best in the state play in the open division, do not have to play in a regional game. So we have a bye, and we'll be playing Saturday, December 11th at 8 p.m. in the heavyweight championship of the state of California against Mater Dei College. Yeah,
right.
They're
the NFL. No.
Yeah, they're an amazing team. Again, they're just the assemblage of talent there is unbelievable. But for us, we're playing at the very, very height of football in the country, not just the state of California plays arguably the best football in the country. And it is the best football in the country because the top teams in the country are usually from California.
Mater Dei being number one.
Mater Dei is number one in the country, and they have been, I think, all year. And they've been beating teams as if they were the number one team in the country, including our friends, Coach Lowe's down at St. John Bosco, and they beat them by 21 points, and they're a juggernaut, to say the least. I don't even know if that's the right word. There's something more than a juggernaut, but we're playing in the heavyweight championship, and that's as a competitor, I can't imagine. People are like, "Hey, do you want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go."
For sure.
I mean, of course.
Why not?
And I know that we're up against one of the best teams assembled in high school football, but they can only put 11 of them out there on the field. Thankfully, they can't put all 40 of their Division I players out there
right.
at the same time, or however many they have. It might be more. But we're going to go down there. We're excited about it. We're going to make it a big deal. We're going to travel in style. We're going to do everything that one of the top teams in the state of California deserves. So it's going to be a heck of a 2 weeks.
That's excellent. Well, we are very excited. I know that the boys, you let them know what are the reactions. I know in my own house what the reaction is, but it's very, very exciting. I mean, what does this mean for Padre football? And can you also just tell me, have we ever played on a stage this large?
No, never. It's kind of a humbling. It's humbling because when I got here in 2001, I didn't even know if we'd win we won some games, but I didn't. We didn't win our first CCS championship until 2013.
Wow.
No, sorry, 2011 was our first one.
Okay.
So it was 10 years before we won a section championship, and the decade of building and kind of if you think about one of those games where you're building an empire, right? It's there's other things and that you got to get through, and there were famines and tough times and all these crazy things that happened, and then bang, in 2011 we won our first section title. And then in 2013, we won our first open division section title, and then in 2014, we won the WCAL, and then I forfeited a playoff game, because I didn't think it was right for us to play consolation football. I just didn't support it for the kids, and it was very, very controversial. So then in 2015, we were 8-2 or 7-3 or something. We had a great year. Hunter Bishop was on that team, a dear friend of mine. And there was that team. I love the spirit of that team. They knew they had no playoffs, and they played harder than any Serra team I've ever had. And they had no playoffs, so that's part of the story. And then in 2016, we went in our first state championship game. We beat Sanger down there in one of the greatest games ever. And then in 2017, we lost the state championship that year by 1 or 2 points. And then in 2017, we won the state championship. And then 2018, St. Francis beat us twice and made us very mad.
Yes.
Right? And we went in, got a new weight room, had some great donations. And in 2019, went back to the state championship. It was like, wow, I don't know if we'll ever be able to do this again. We went back to the state championship in 2019 with an amazing team, great group of humans. And then 2020 hits.
Right.
What the hell was that?
Halted all of us.
It halted all of us. And it was like, whoa, this is, we know some of the stories that we all went through, I went through personally. And now we're here in 2021 and we're playing on the world stage of high school football. And to me, that whole journey from starting in 2021, it's can encapsulate the whole thing into these next 2 weeks when we kick off at 8:00 in the heavyweight championship game, Serra High School. Would I have thought that in 2001? No, I was looking up at everybody like, how do we do this? How do we get there? That's a really kind of cool place to be. And now we're in that conversation. Now we're in that game. And I just want to state it publicly that we're playing for the 2020 team too.
I love that.
We really are. And I mean, those guys, if we were playing that way in the fall, they might have been in this game. That team was so dialed. And it was dialed in our own way, right? Because we went through so much pain. Mm-hmm. But we're playing for those guys too. And we're playing for all the Padres. And, this is whenever you get this far after doing that after so many years, everyone has a part of it. Every alumni, everyone who's played here, everyone who's gone to school here, hopefully Tommy will definitely send us a text or do something. Like we're playing for all those guys, mm-hmm. Because this is a special place. 20th Avenue, San Mateo, California. This is a special place where dreams come true, where boys become men. And football is an extension of what happens on this campus every single day, from campus ministry to visual and performing arts. I mean, we say it all the time. It's not a cliche. Mm-hmm. People come here and their lives change. And our football program is a representative of all of it, of all the wonderful teachers we have, of our maintenance and facility staff. They're wearing Serra hats. They love this place.
They do.
And, we're playing for them too. And I get emotional when I think about it because I've spent, 21 years of my life here at this place. I love it. And, yeah, I'm excited.
We love you. And I'm just so happy for you and your journey. And really, as you're talking, last year it was just so dark, and to be able to come back that's a beautiful story in and of itself of resilience and grit and the power to come back and play on the center stage is amazing. Yeah. What does this mean to you personally? Like just as a coach, I mean, in your career, I mean, what is this? How is this?
Yeah, it's, there's no words to describe it, because people have come and gone here. We've had some great coaches. Jose Nuila was an offensive coordinator here for a long time. Eric Moore was defensive coordinator here. I've had John Kirby. He's caught passes from. I give him crap because he caught like the first touchdown Tom Brady threw at Serra. So I'm like, you're like his birth mother. Like without you, like you did have no touchdowns. But there's just been some wonderful people, and frankly, I'm the only one who's been here through all the pain.
Right. So
I don't know how to state it, but I'm literally the only one. That's kind of the Andy Dufresne concept because I've seen it all. Because I'm the only one who's been here, and my wife, and just seeing the joy when hugging my son Charlie. Who used to wear the Chewy suit. You might have to bring the Chewy suit back out. We're gonna have to.
You have a nephew though that could be donning that too as well.
Right. We got to get the Chewy suit. Man, we need all the Chewbacca's for this one. But it means so much to me because of everything that we've been through and all the obstacles we've overcome and all the pain and hurdles and all the kids out there that are listening to this, kids that are now adults that have families and like thank you for sticking through this, as I've learned so much. And, you know, when I first got this job, I was 26 years old and made a ton of mistakes, and I regret them deeply. You know, some of the words that I've said to players over the years, I'm not proud of, you know, and it's hard and a harrowing journey, but to do it all in one place for 21 years, you know, now going into the third decade, and to be on the biggest stage of high school football is a humbling experience. And we want to win the game.
Right.
I mean, we're not just going in for some, you know, rehearsal, and we know what we're up against. I mean, the reality of the situation is they're a heavy favorite. Right. Like, if Vegas had odds, it would be a very highly favored football team. And, you know, but I know our spirit is, you know, we're going to get in that ring and, like Rocky fighting Ivan Drago, and, you know, try to cut the Russian at least. And, you know, maybe by the end of the night, they'll be cheering Serra High School, at least with our effort. So
skill and spirit, we've got that. So
no doubt.
Great. Well, I'm just going to end. You mentioned Hunter Bishop, and I was reading. I saw that he tweeted, maybe it was yesterday, the day before. He said, "I'm sending out my annual post. Coach Patrick Walsh is the best coach of all time." And I just thought, since you brought him up earlier, I'm sure that's been retweeted a million times, because you really indeed are amazing. Your connection, emotion, and your love for this sport and your boys is it's contagious and so honorable. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
I did see one of the responses though was, "Wait, isn't Coach Laddiser the best coach of all time?" And I was like, "Yeah, I
didn't read that far down." So
I probably agree with that one. Anyway.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say congratulations. Enjoy this moment. Enjoy Friday night's win, and we'll talk more as we progress about what the Monarchs do so well. All right. Well, thank you. Go Padres.
Go Padres.